This is a podcast presented by
Hard to Find Media.
Subscribe to Hard to Find Media on youtube.com/Hard to Find Media Network. This shit is free. Share it. Blast it.
Chloe's annoying persistence and zero consequences on this episode of Smallville Freaks.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
Whatever it is, I can handle it.
You're the one always telling me I need to find my destiny. But one thing's for certain, it's not here in Kansas.
You saved my life.
He's a rather extraordinary young man. Don't you think?
Hello and welcome to Smallville Freaks, a podcast 15 years too late. I am Mike Pelly,
And I'm Jason Lamb.
and we're discussing episode 14, season 1 of Smallville, called Zero. And wow, this is quite an interesting episode because it's sort of like part 2 to an episode we saw prior. The detective guy who found out about Clark's powers and tried to have him do all these favors for him. Phelan, yeah.
Like I always like to talk about how he drops a fucking engine on him.
Yeah.
They've been leading up to this. They've been mentioning and sprinkling it throughout the episodes where they talk about Club Zero.
Yeah, this mythical Club Zero.
And we're sort of led to believe that something shady went down with Lex.
Yeah.
And
And it did.
it did. But
But Lex didn't do anything.
yeah.
Uh,
Lex was a good guy, which is like, that's the thing is like, you love this character. There's nothing really like
No.
that's set up that you hate about Lex yet.
Yeah, he's great. And the episode kind of starts out with him being sort of doing the right thing. There's this woman that he goes to the club with. This is like 3 years in the past.
Amanda.
And I guess in a way she's a key person in this episode. There's a lot of like weird side characters that are only in this episode.
Yeah.
It's not as much focal on main characters except for Lex Luthor in this one. But he goes to the Club Zero with this woman, and she's like engaged, and she sees her ex-husband there. And it turns out that Lex set it up to where she would see him there so she could see that he's cheating on her and like being shady and all that. And I just thought that was funny because it's kind of familiar territory. It's very Lex Luthor that we've seen him doing with the high schoolers, where he's meddling a little bit to try to make Lana like Clark more, kind of making Whitney look like a piece of shit in ways.
But he also has an ulterior motive where you're not really sure if Lex is into Lana himself.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, oh, well, he deserves better, which is what he says.
But I think that might have been the point of this, was to kind of show that, no, he's actually trying to like fix things.
Yeah.
I think he likens himself to a fixer with people, which is so weird because it's Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
But that's even more interesting because as the character breaks down and becomes, the Lex Luthor, it's pretty tragic because you can kind of see where he's coming from.
Yeah.
His origin is like kind of good. Anyway, that being said,
So Amanda's fiance Jude is
Jude
at the
Royce.
club. Jude Royce, yeah, and he's got some ladies on him.
Yep.
And she's not too happy with that.
Of course not. They're engaged. So
Yeah.
she throws the ring at him. This big altercation happens, and then there's a murder. Now this is the thing of the episode. It's trying to be like a murder mystery kind of in a way, where you need to you're trying to figure out what happened. Did Lex pull the trigger? Who did? I think it's pretty obvious in the very beginning Lex didn't do it because it doesn't show any gun in his hand at all.
Well, there's the one. So you see 3 different perspectives of it, and it reminds me of this Kurosawa movie called Rashomon.
Yeah.
That's about a murder mystery, and it's told from like 3 different people's perspectives. In this case, it's Lex telling 3 different versions of the story. There's the first one where like his bodyguard shoots Jude.
Right.
There's the second one where he shoots Jude,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's the third one,
Which is the real one.
which is the real
This
one.
is Amanda did it.
And Amanda is actually the killer. But the whole time you suspect that it was Lex anyway.
Well, I don't suspect it. I never suspected it was Lex even back when I saw this in 2001 because he's clearly not appearing guilty. He's more scared of the consequences.
Right.
And you can see it where Fallon, or is it Fallon? Is how you pronounce
Phelan.
it? Phelan. This is where you kind of see Phelan's origin, is because he pops in on the flashback and he's just like, don't worry, I'll take care of it. I'm your fix-up guy.
Right. We actually see him as the fixer.
Yes.
Daddy's money.
Which is why in that episode prior, you see how he's just like, you owe me a favor or whatever to Lex.
My father paid you so much. So yeah, that's really how it wraps. I mean, that wraps up the whole thing with Lex's storyline. But now we have the stuff with Clark and Chloe and Lana.
Right. Yeah. So that's basically the murder mystery side of this episode. But I want to talk about this guy Jude Royce, or should I say, a random cook in a bar that looks like Jude Royce.
Yeah.
What? Okay. The reveal at the end is so. It's like we were getting like to the last 10 minutes of the episode and they still hadn't revealed if that's really Jude that's stalking Lex, like, because he's died. The guy was shot to death in the beginning. That's why he's just like, who are you? You can't be, you're dead. Turns out the guy's just a doppelganger that works in a fucking bar that Amanda's brother saw.
Yeah.
He was, I guess, sulking in a bar after Amanda killed herself, sees a guy who looks exactly like Jude Royce, pays him money, and then has him go to Smallville, stalk Lex, do this weird shit at the Talon, like being creepy with Lana.
Yeah.
And so it makes no sense.
And it also, coincidentally, Amanda's brother happens to be a killer who is unstable.
And a contractor.
And a contractor. Yeah, who's fixing up the Talon.
It's all like, really convenient.
But it's so like, it reminds me of those like Silver Age storylines that are just like batshit. Like, oh, it's like you had this lookalike who worked in a kitchen. And
it's...
they do the Scooby-Doo moment at the end where they pull the mask off
it's
and they
pretty much
reveal
that.
Who the killer is and they wrap it up all in like one episode.
That's what they did. And I did not like it. But the episode itself, I guess I kind of liked because there was some sort of thing about it, like the flow of it was different than other episodes. Like there was a lot of like long takes with the kids going through the hallways at school just talking.
Yeah, that was interesting.
And how Chloe, of course we're going to talk about Chloe's infatuation with Clark's history and how it kind of turns itself upside down.
Well, that's like probably why she's interested in him romantically too. Is who is this guy?
Yeah.
So it was the guy. So at some point, they find a severed hand.
Yes,
in the Talon. And this is all over the place. Where I don't know. I don't think I'm doing a good job of putting this in order.
No, the episode is just
Max. Who I don't know. Is he actually his bodyguard?
No, what happened?
He's just a guy that's
he was a guy that was working at Club Zero, and he was just involved in the altercation. And so that's why when he shows back up in Smallville asking Lex for help, he's all freaked out because I guess the brother, I guess Amanda's brother had the fake Jude creeping on that guy first.
Yeah.
To scare him.
Yeah.
And then the fake Jude, or I guess it was probably the contractor, went to the apartment and cut off the guy's fucking hand and killed him.
Yeah.
This is like the guy, apparently his whole motive was he's upset that Lex had some role in his sister killing herself.
Right.
I guess he's so mad about that he needs to do this whole doppelganger thing and kill a man and take his hand off and mail it to the Talon, and it's just insanity.
Okay, this is not the same thing, but here's a little story time with Jason Lamb.
Sure.
When I was in high school, or like I guess like middle school, like 8th grade, and then 9th grade when I started, there's like a summer. There's always like, oh, like what'd you do over the summer or whatever. Yep. Apparently there was somebody who had a crush on me. Over the summer, she started seeing some guy who ended up like dumping her, breaking her heart or something like that. When her brother asked her what had happened, she said it was me that did it.
Oh God.
And my first day in 9th grade as a freshman, he was like this cholo guy. He like threatened to shoot me
God.
For what I did to his sister.
Oh my god.
And I was like, I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about, dude. And
oh shit.
I don't even think he actually went. Like he wasn't enrolled in school. He just showed up the first day because he knew I would
you'd
be there.
Oh no, that's fucking frightening.
And he's like, I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, don't fucking lie to me. Don't fucking lie to me, dog. And I was like, I really don't know what to do. He's like, yeah, that's what I thought. And he's just like,
what?
Yeah.
And was that the last of it?
It was like, that was the last of it. I never saw him again.
Wow.
And then I found out later that it was like this other dude, and she just like didn't want to say who it actually was because she was afraid of what her brother might do. So instead she used my name.
That's fucked up. That's fucked up.
All right, so that was end of story time with Jason Lamb.
But you can see how it all kind of comes together. Okay, well that concludes story time with Jason Lamb. Let's go into the drama segment.
Trust me, you don't want to know me the way you think you do.
Clark, that's my decision to make.
Okay, so let's talk about this whole class assignment thing that Chloe's doing. Now, I wrote on my notes, Chloe is being annoyingly persistent. And the word persistence is used in this episode a lot as well. So it's very aware that she's like pushing and pushing and pushing. And even to the point where Clark's poor parents are like in a corner and she's like shoving a mic in their face. And it is so rude. Just demanding to know about Clark's adoption and all that stuff. And of course, the more she digs, she's going to find some stuff that we'll talk about in the Geek Lore segment about his adoption.
There's also three different characters that talk about the dangers of resurrecting the past in this episode.
Yes. There's like one with Clark and Lex where Clark is trying to uncover Lex's past and then Chloe trying to uncover Clark's past. But that one's more, I think, of more a romantic infatuation, and that's why we're doing it on the drama segment.
And then the killer guy, Amanda's brother, also mentions like when you resurrect the past, you get the problems that come with it.
Interesting.
And that was like in the very beginning when he's like trying to fix the pipes, in his contractor disguise or whatever.
Yeah. It's just so funny that this episode is like, it's kind of really deep in a way where it's trying to convey this one message, but it's also, it's all like, so at face value as well.
That it's like so on the nose. It's like not really a creative way of doing it. It's just like, get it?
So Chloe, she's really starting to get on Clark's nerves because this is, she's starting to find out about the sketchiness of his adoption because he's an alien. Who was the Kents had to get creative with that. And she's digging and he gets pissed. She's like really taken aback by that and like calls it off. But at the end, she's not going to delete that info. She's still so into it.
That's right.
But that was pretty much that. The other thing was there's a lot of like Clark and Lana flirting at the end at the Talon opening.
Right.
Which is just getting stronger and stronger. And at this point, it's just absolutely fucking ridiculous. Because she's still dating Whitney. She's got a boyfriend, yet it's like her other boyfriend is Clark. Like, the way they talk to each other is like they're literally in a relationship.
Yeah. And she's also like she's like hanging out with Whitney and she's like, oh, hold on, I have to go talk to somebody. And it's like Clark.
Yeah, it's like her two boyfriends.
But then like Whitney like just like smiles at Clark's presence. And I think it's like super weird because like wouldn't he be like, oh, fuck, again? Like, so you're going to go blow me off to go hang out with Clark? Like why would that not click?
Oh, God. I don't care about Whitney at all. So it's like fucking fine, and that's pretty much it as far as drama goes. It's this episode again, it was more concentrated on the murder mystery.
Club Z.
Club Zero.
Wait. No. I said this earlier that I wasn't going to confuse it, but I did. Club Z is like the local like Seattle like gay bathhouse. I actually don't know if it's still operating, but Club Z and Club Zero I get mixed up all the time.
Maybe you can go there and witness a murder.
Yeah. It's so funny that you said like let's witness a murder and then like the ambulance rolls by or like the siren goes by.
Perfect. All right, let's go to the drinking game.
Party can officially begin. The Luthors are here.
All right. So in this one, it's pretty light as far as our rules are concerned. We've got 8. We have
That's not light. But
well, if I would say go with shots, you could maybe handle 8 shots
casually though.
So if someone says son or father, I'll just go into the ones we have. Someone says son or father, that's 5 times.
Of course.
That's by my count.
I think a lot of that was Jonathan.
No, I think there was also like Phelan says father once.
Oh, good.
And
Phelan.
Lex says my father. My father wouldn't blah blah blah. Okay, so and then glass shattering only happens once, and it happens once at the very end of the episode.
We were waiting.
I was just like, when
Our
is this
fingers
gonna
were
happen?
crossed.
Is this like the first one where it's not going to happen? But no, it happened.
It finally did.
It always fucking.
And it's Lex getting like punched through a fucking giant fish tank.
A fish tank that's filled with like orbs and like
Yeah,
triangles.
that's at the ledge of a second story of a nightclub. It's so dangerous.
I don't know. Maybe they were turning Club Zero into an Asian restaurant. They always have like the
Something like
aquarium
that.
in the beginning.
Some
Luthor cocktail in the beginning. Lex orders a cocktail
at
when
the
he's
Club
talking to
Zero,
Amanda.
which counts because it's like a Luthor owned establishment.
There you go. And Clark shows up out of nowhere. That happens once. For some reason, he shows up to
at the boxing place.
Yeah, like how would he know to be there? And he like figures out like
I don't know. All we know is that he was looking for Lex, but why would he go check up the boxing place? That's so strange.
Right.
So we're gonna move on to the geek lore segment.
This is Smallville. Meteor freaks, alien ships, cryptic symbols. Someone has to protect the world.
All right. So in this one, we talk about Clark's adoption. Is something that's referenced here, and we find out that like, what was it? Metropolis United Charities.
Right.
Chloe does some digging for her class project and finds out that this company that the Kents went through only was around for 6 months. So that
and they only adopted
shady.
Clark.
They only adopted Clark. They only did one adoption, and that
Yes.
was Clark. So obviously that looks a little bit shady.
Yes.
Which leads up to a later episode reveal that it was actually like the reason why Jonathan is so weird with the
Luthors. It was
that Lionel helped set up their adoption because he was sweet on Martha.
Right.
I think, right? That's
well, no.
what I remember.
It had something to do with just business. Like a way to have
like a favor, like you owe me a favor.
Exactly.
Kind of
That's
thing.
the way Lionel does it, is that he uses people and does quote unquote nice things for people so that way they owe him a debt.
So, where this ties into geek lore is it's actually been a thing throughout the history of the Superman comics, as early as like Superman number 53, where they have an adoption scene, and throughout the comics they've addressed like, is he a citizen? How did he become a citizen and stuff like that?
Right.
And I think the first iteration, or maybe it was the post crisis version of Superman, it was some sort of like Smallville orphanage, which is really funny because Smallville's tiny. Like, how many orphans would there possibly be in Smallville? Like, maybe just Clark. But so at first they find the baby and they take Clark to this adoption agency and leave him there for a little while, and then eventually adopt him when they're just like, well, maybe we should probably adopt him because
that makes sense. Interesting. I never knew that. Is that in the 1986 run?
That was in the 1986 run that was relaunched by John Byrne.
Yeah.
And it was the Superman Secret Origin.
I love that run. It's so good.
It's so good. Yeah. I was just reading John Byrne's X-Men run, and he's fantastic in it as well. Well, he drew it. He didn't write it, but he's still like a really accomplished artist.
Absolutely.
So then Chloe at one point says, "Now you're spinning in my orbit."
Oh, God.
Which makes me think of, obviously, Superman the movie.
Yes.
Right? Where he reverses time.
He's
by changing
orbiting
the
the
rotation
world
of the Earth, which that's how science works in the fifth dimension.
And that's also just a heads up to all you who've seen the show and haven't. Chloe goes on a fucking spree in future episodes of referencing Superman stuff with her quirky bad one-liners.
Yeah, totally.
And just get ready for that.
Chloe asks Clark at some point if he ever wonders about his biological parents. Obviously,
There we go.
Kryptonian.
Yep. That was also the first reference I think that we've actually even acknowledged
in the episode.
Biological parents for Clark in Smallville.
Right. And Jonathan also says, like, what's hanging out in our cellar, which is obviously his spaceship.
Right. Exactly. That's interesting. We haven't even visited the cellar yet.
We haven't seen it. No, we haven't seen it at all. But we know, or like Superman fans, as the show was coming out, would know that he was referencing the spaceship.
Exactly. It's so funny because we see so much of it in future Smallville stuff, but that it's just casually mentioned here, and we know we never spent time down there yet.
Right. And then, so this one is actually, this episode's pretty good for that. Somebody mentioned Central City.
Ooh,
right? Was it
Flash.
Amanda's brother? Amanda's brother was from Central City?
Yes. Yes. Amanda and her brother, the contractor, are from Central City.
And that's the home city of the Flash.
Of Barry Allen. Yes.
Barry Allen.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that concludes what I want to talk about for Geek Lore.
Yeah, let's dive right into the crew spotlight.
I'm to help create the look of the show, to tell the story visually.
So in this episode, Jude Royce, who is the guy who gets killed, Amanda's fiance or whatnot.
And eventually is a doppelganger that works as a cook at a bar.
Right. He is played by this guy named Corin Nemec. And again, like I started out, this podcast wanting to focus on people who weren't the actors, but they keep popping up and I got to talk about it. So Corin Nemec, my first introduction to him was in 1990, and he was in the show called Parker Lewis Can't Lose.
Oh shit!
And
that's throwback.
It's a real throwback, but I watched it religiously. I think it was around for like 4 seasons, and it was a television ripoff of the Ferris Bueller idea about a high school kid who could get away with anything, like he could do no wrong because everybody loved Parker Lewis.
Oh my god, that is such a ripoff.
But then he also had they changed it up a little bit, and he had like a Scooby Crew kind of that was like always with him, and they had synchronized watches.
What is this show?
Every time they had
I need to see this.
Oh, if you love 90s shit, you have to watch Parker Lewis Can't Lose.
Yes.
But yeah, so they had synchronized watches, and every time they were going to go tackle something together, they would check their synchronized watches and then go do the thing. And and most recently, I saw him. I just finished up Stargate SG-1, and most recently he was in that for 2 seasons as one of the main characters. And he was replacing. And if you guys watch Stargate, he was replacing Dr. Daniel Jackson, who's from the movie, played by James Spader.
James Spader, yeah.
And he gets picked up on this other Earth-like planet and replaces him as basically like the scientist.
Okay,
but he's
not replacing the character himself, just replacing that
role. Yeah, he's replacing the role, and it was terrible. Like he was terrible in it, and there was huge fan backlash. So he was featured fully on the cast for 1 season, and then they upped their pay.
Wow.
And brought back the actor for Daniel Jackson. So he got written off the show immediately because he was so bad. But I like him. It was nice to see him in these things.
Oh, I hate him.
But yeah, so that wraps up our
crew spotlight.
Corin Nemec.
Good to know. This is all useful information, everybody. Make sure you remember it. Thanks for tuning in. Jason, where can people find you on the internet?
Currently, Instagram at JTL_help.
And you can find me on all social media platforms at Mike Pelly, Mike with a Y. Thanks for listening. Join us next week for episode 15. I think it's called
Nicodemus.
Nicodemus. Yes. Yeah. Very excited. All right. See you then.
Late.
This has been a podcast presented by
Hard to Find Media.
Subscribe to Hard to Find Media on youtube.com/Hard to Find Media Network. This shit is free. Share it. Blast it. Fuck it.